Welcome to Bits-N-Bytes. This is your first. I don't know if you spoke to anyone. I think we had Willie here 2 guests ago, and she actually was a performer. And she was actually willing to sing. We didn't get her to sing, but so you were to say performer. I'm like, oh, maybe she can sing now. But yeah, tell us. So, how did you tell a little bit about your background? How did you get started as a nurse, and then now you're in IT? I mean, were you always like into technology, or kind of how that evolved?
Sure. So I did play the guitar. I would like to say that for a few years, but it didn't last.
So we actually have a good no.
Don't test me. Then people will surely lose confidence. So I started my career as a staff nurse in the emergency department at Bellevue. And when I started, it was 2004. And at that time, they were really taking graduate nurses into the hospital setting, whether or not you passed or failed your boards, right? I had my bachelor's for them. That was good enough in terms of getting into the residency program and beginning my education and soon hiring. And so I stayed in the emergency department at Bellevue for 3 years. I loved every moment of it. It was truly the foundation necessary that I felt that allowed me to be sort of fearless in some of the risk taking that I've done from a career and professional perspective, because any given moment you didn't know what was coming through the door, age, times on this earth or not on this earth, and it was just truly life-changing. I stayed in the emergency department for about 3 or 4 years, and then there were opportunities happening at Weill Cornell, and I was at a place in my life where I knew I wanted to do more than what I was doing. Not that what I was doing wasn't fulfilling enough, but I knew if I stayed, I would be there, I'd be a lifer. And I felt like I needed to do more. And so when I was looking, while Cornell was hiring, and they were hiring into the burn unit, and so clinically, that was something for me at the point in my career that I didn't have enough face time with in terms of burns, because with Bellevue, while we were a level 1 trauma center, we immediately stabilized and then sent our burn victims to Jacobi, because Jacobi was an HHC hospital, but that was their specialty. Ours was trauma, theirs was burns. And so I thought clinically that was an opportunity. And when I interviewed, I'll never forget, her name was Susan Bonham. She's, I believe, still with the organization. She was the recruiter who interviewed me and said, you know what, Mary, I think after a few months it may get a little monotonous in terms of where you want to go with your own professional path. She said, because of your desire for quick change, we have an opportunity in the post-anesthesia care unit. And I thought, okay, I could see that. It's very similar to the emergency department in that it's slightly more organized, but it's tremendously involved in regards to problem solving, patient throughput, working with various disciplines, different personalities. And so I thought, okay, let me interview. So I interviewed and I worked in the post-anesthesia care unit for a few years. I started as a clinical staff nurse, and then I quickly went into management. And to be honest with you, I was at a point in my life where I thought I was going to go into flight nursing. I thought I wanted to be a CRNA, but like many things in life, you can plan and you can plan, but it doesn't always prove that way. And so I was fortunate enough to be surrounded by so many really influential people who saw something in me. And so they had said, Mary, would you consider interviewing for the clinical evening manager role? And I said, sure. I loved being in charge. I loved patient facing, but I also loved figuring out problems with my colleagues, but also with the physicians. I had a really quick acclimation to what it entailed for the physician and their workflow and the challenges they were faced with. Having been in the OR for sometimes 12, 14 hours, to have to hear pack you on hold, that's almost like the last thing a surgeon wants to hear after 12 or 14 hours in the OR. And so in doing charge, I thought this was a great opportunity. And then I quickly took on that role. And then from there on out, I took on various leadership roles As of recent, being the director of nursing at the Allen Hospital for the emergency department, ICU, step down, staffing office, and perioperative services. And so that was a really neat opportunity to bring all of my clinical worlds together to have that director role. After doing that for a little under 2 years, the opportunity opened up for the chief nursing officer role for the Allen, but also the ambulatory care network, which was really just one of the best learning experiences I've ever had in terms of just understanding their business, their operations, their flow, partnering with so many different clinics and teams. It was just really just a tremendous experience. And so I did that for about a year, and all of a sudden this opportunity came up, and I saw the vision, and I thought this could not be any more perfect in terms of really having the ability to marry worlds together so that it makes sense not only from the IT infrastructure standpoint, but also from the end user workflow standpoint, which is truly so crucial because the technology is so impressive and so advanced, but it has to make sense to the person actually using it. And so I have been nothing but grateful and appreciative of every experience I've had. I'm surrounded by so many talented people. It's been about 8 weeks. I'm not counting. I'm just doing it because of this. But really, I've learned so much from so many of you in the audience already, and I just cannot wait to see what's in store, because this is the place to be in terms of IT. I saw a few hands that were raised earlier when the question was asked, who's not in IT? Well, I'm here to say, let the recruitment begin. Just kidding. But truly, it's such an awesome, so diverse platform, and the potential is endless.
Yeah, that's an amazing career so far. So it sounds like almost like that recruiter she almost kind of shaped helped shape your career.
She
said,
did.
Hey, she saw something about you. It's like, I don't think this role is for you. I have a better role for you.
Yeah.
And that's a good recruiter.
Yeah. No, I agree. And I think that is what's so crucial about that facing interview, right? It's knowing who your applicant is, their background, but also understanding what piques their interest, right? Because you want to create sustainability, and you want someone to be passionate and really love what they do. And so I'm gonna shoot her an email. You're right, I should. It's been a while, Susan.
I was just saying. Where do you see when you were in nursing, I'm sure you've been exposed to IT. Mm-hmm. But I guess being in this new position as VP of Clinical Apps, mm-hmm. Do you think it's like a kind of a different level of technology? Do you feel like you have to know more technology because you're in IT now versus you're in a clinical?
That's a great question. It's part of who I am to want to know as much as I can know, but do I think I need to know as much as the data analysts I'm surrounded by, or the specialists I see every day? I don't think I need to know that level of detail, but I do need to know what they do so that I can be that support person for them from a leadership standpoint. I'm trying to learn as much as I possibly can, knowing that I'll never code, but I sure would love to understand what goes into it and things of that nature. But really, my role is to level set expectations, to be as supportive to my teams as possible, because just like when I was a director of nursing or a CNO, it's more about the end user, the person at the front line doing the work so that I can make sense for their workflow, so that they're working in the best, most effective environment. That's my role.
Right. So it seems like you've almost kind of started breaking by that barrier, because most of the time, non-IT people, I think, are, I won't say scared, but they feel that there's like a barrier where they can't go to IT because it's super technical. But now, because everything is so integrated in IT, it almost is beneficial or advantageous for someone from the business side or clinical side to be in IT because they know the workflows and the operations and the processes.
Absolutely. I think like any world, and regardless if it's clinical or information technology or operations, to really build a bench of strength with variety and diversity is crucial. You never want 100 of the same thing because there's no true dialogue or really great ideas when it's all the same, right? Because really what you want to do is have the ability to challenge, right? I can have a flight of ideas that seem really marvelous in my head, and I'm going to go to Danny and I'm going to say, Danny, I have this really awesome idea. I want to automate all the lab results coming out of Cerner so that it goes to mobile heartbeat. And I'm expecting Danny to say, you know what, Mary? I love the idea, but I don't know if it's going to work. Or, no, it does make sense. Let's try it, right? Because I want that pushback.
Yeah. And you're right, because I think in technology, we're looking at it from the technical perspective and saying, no, that's not going to work. And we're kind of stopping ourselves there already. Whereas you're coming in with a fresh kind of mind and you're saying, well, forget about all the things in the back end. Let's figure out where the endpoint is and how we can get to it, right? So tell us a little bit about your current role and what your responsibilities are.
Sure. So as the Vice President for Clinical Applications, like most roles within IT, it's across NYP, right? So it's not just CUIMC, Weill Cornell, Lower Manhattan. It is also our regional hospitals that we provide oversight to. And so currently from, I guess, a TO standpoint, it's all the ancillary systems. So
That's TO?
Table of organization standpoint.
Sorry.
I'm sorry.
No.
I love acronyms, by the way. I feel like I've been raised. Yes.
Yeah, you're perfect.
Well, I think the organization loves acronyms, right? And I sort of was raised in NYP, but so ancillary systems, so radiology, oncology, perioperative services, labs. Definitely forgetting a few, so bear with me on that. The impact team, EMR, health information management systems. So all of the literal clinical applications that we do on a daily, regular basis from an end user patient care perspective is what I provide direct oversight on.
Okay. And where do you see, how has the transition been so far?
Awesome. You can ask some of my team members. No, I literally feel like I've been given a giant gift. I'm really excited, maybe a little too excited. People are probably like, oh, look at her, and she's smiling. But it's really been awesome. Don't get me wrong, it's challenging. It's incredibly challenging, right? Especially when you're sitting on some of the phone calls and trying to decipher through some of the language.
Okay.
But it then just leaves me to be texting some of my friends and being like, oh, Leo, what does this mean?
Right.
And how does this impact us? And what's been crucial is really relying heavily on all of you that I work with every day to give me a lot of that knowledge. And so when I took on this role, I've been very transparent that I'm not someone that has a very strong IT background from that standpoint, but this relationship is bi-directional, right? So I hope from all of you, I've gained so much, and I hope to give that back in many other ways in terms of my level of expertise. And there's more to learn, 100%, and I'm more than willing. And I cannot wait. And I cannot wait to see the barriers we push through and to see what we're able to do as a team.
Do you see a lot of differences between the clinical side, as far as practices and processes between the clinical side and IT?
I see a lot of similarities, but sure, there are differences. But I think it's just from a structural standpoint, less so than from a daily workflow operations standpoint. It's sort of comforting knowing that we all have very similar challenges in terms of what we're trying to do, and be more innovative and be more creative and do more with less, and be more strategic. And so that is really what we're all trying to do, and what's neat is really trying to just make sense of it for everyone involved, and sort of stepping away from what our comfort zone is, and the focal point that it's so easy to just concentrate on what's in front of you, but to always think about the impact to the greater good. And so for me, that has been a little bit different because it is more global. And it is more about everybody in terms of impact.
Yeah. What do you think your biggest short-term challenges for you right now?
I think just making sure that my team sees me. I think, wanting to really just get my hands dirty in terms of being visible, being physically there for a lot of important things. That's really important to me. And I think that's been a little bit of a challenge because I came in and I want to do so much so quickly, but I also don't want to lose sight of the impact to my teams, to know that I'm there to support them.
Got it. So let's change gears a little bit. Let's talk about Epic, right? Obviously, we all know it's coming, and it's coming fast. What have you kind of heard about? Well, first of all, what are your impressions of Epic? Good or bad? And what kind of feedback have you heard so far from just like providers on the clinical side? Are they happy that Epic's here, or they're just pissed off that Epic's coming?
No, I think one common sentiment around Epic has been just sort of like all things, like an abyss almost, like the unknown, that there's a little bit of uncertainty. That being said, from an end user perspective, from a physician perspective, nursing, and some of the IT team members that I've spoken with, I think everybody is excited and really excited to have this one integrated EHR, right? We all know what that means for workflow, for efficiency, for patient satisfaction, for staff satisfaction, but it's getting there. That's going to be hard, right? It's going to be hard, like all things, but as long as we're doing it together as a group, with a lot of communication, transparency, I think that we're going to reap tremendous benefit. When you think about the pre-work of leading us to where we are with Epic, before we even begin the core groups and the group work, all of the effort it took to actually create just that one contract, right, with Cornell University, Columbia University, NYP, was monumental. It really did set the tone that we're a team, right? It is about the patient care. It is about making sense of our workflow, and what we can do in numbers is a lot more positive strength than living in separate worlds.
Right.
And so Epic is awesome. Epic's going to be really, really game-changing for the organization. It's going to have its challenges, but we know that. And so we just have to rely heavily on embracing one another in terms of just communicating, being transparent, and being that necessary support.
Right. No, I mean, Epic, I know of other hospitals, other organizations are using Epic, and I think they've had huge, just streamlined processes. I know NYU used Epic, and I've actually experienced kind of, as a patient, and I gotta say, it's very streamlined, and the patient experience is pretty amazing.
The patient experience is pretty amazing. I have had some experience working with Epic from my time spent in pre-op. At one point in my career, I was the patient care director for Weill Cornell's pre-op area, and having worked with Epic from that standpoint was really influencing in terms of the impact that I knew it could make, and how efficient it was compared to other systems that I've worked with.
Right.
Again, that was very siloed in terms of the system itself, module itself, but it was really intuitive. Again, it took some time building it to get it to that place, to make it intuitive, but the time was spent and the end product was really awesome.
Sure. So we've been hearing a lot of things about AI and artificial intelligence in healthcare. What are your thoughts on AI? Do you think, a computer, an algorithm would do a better job of diagnosing and predicting illnesses?
To say that it would do a better job, right? So it's a machine, right? And it's machine learning, and in order to get it to that place, it does involve a lot of human factor. I think AI is a really good thing. I think it's not going to replace what we're doing from a patient care perspective. I really do feel strongly that it will make life a lot more efficient, and it will make sense of a lot of what we're doing. It will provide the end user or the clinician to actually get some time back and spend it where they need to with the patient. I think we've gotten very task-oriented sometimes from a clinical perspective because there's so many T's to cross and I's to dot, and in trying to figure out, you only have 24 hours in a day, and trying to see every patient and trying to make sense of orders and clinical pathways and all of the variables, it's very time consuming. And then we have to think about the patient experience, right? We have to think about the impact that the family has on that patient's life, and how are we going to communicate in a way that it's understood and it's received and it's effective. And so I think AI is going to be really influential, and it will be a positive influence. Do I think in other facets of operations, is it going to have another impact? Maybe, but I do think the capability to fix a lot of situations that have almost just wasted time in so many ways is awesome.
Yeah.
From an AI perspective.
Right, and NYP itself, we've kind of started in that direction with the clock, right, with the clinical operations center. And they're literally, I don't know if you guys know, but they're literally sitting on the second floor. They have a bunch of monitors in front of them, and they're monitoring, correct me if I'm wrong, patients from their desk, and kind of just getting triggers and alerts on patients if there's anything that they're...
Yeah, so initially, and Leo, and this is really Leo and Rosemary, who've been so influential in building what it currently is today, right? And so I know many folks were involved, but currently there is a lot of monitoring going on, right? So even if you think about something simple like refrigerator monitoring, you would think it was simple,
right.
But time and time again, from a regulatory standpoint, it was the thing that we got dinged on. It didn't matter if you were at Lower Manhattan or if you were at Weill Cornell, and we finally fixed that with the clock, with this centralized monitoring capability with a lot of our refrigerators, all of our refrigerators, which has been, it sounds simple, but it has been so positively impactful, because from an end user perspective, you literally had to manually, depending on the actual refrigerator and how many refrigerators existed in your world, you had to manually check it and put it in a little box on a piece of paper and hope that that piece of paper was still there, or if it wasn't put into a binder. And when you think of all of the time wasted doing that, it really did make a tremendous impact.
Yeah.
From a monitoring standpoint, to what you're talking about, they have implemented for Weill Cornell's emergency department. They are looking at doing this constant monitoring of the hemodynamic monitors in the emergency department, where they have a forward-facing RN and or NP, MD looking at these monitors. And so we just recently visited another facility that does this for an ICU, and seeing what the feasibility is for that. And there's a lot of feasibility out there.
Right.
It's just that we have to do it right and safe, and it's got to make sense, from a quality and regulatory standpoint as well.
Right. Interesting, because you talked about that it has to make sense, a few times. Have you seen technology has huge positive healthcare, obviously,
Positive.
but have you seen it being less positive sometimes in certain areas?
So I don't want to open Pandora's box, but yes, I have, and I think it never is one person or one team's fault. It's really just in the moment trying to fix a problem, right? It's often from either an efficiency or regulatory standpoint that we're trying to fix the problem,
Yeah.
and in doing so, the ease of technology is not as useful to the end user. And like all things, if you're not using it, then it's going to waste, and then you've kind of almost mitigated what you tried to fix in a negative way, right? So I think that we're all moving to a place where we do want it to be simple, we want it to be effective, we want it to be innovative 100%, but that's what's key about partnering with all key stakeholders always when you're rolling things out, because we've certainly had our challenges, and not just here, in other places as well. And
Right.
so I think it's nice to see the evolution of what's happened, even from when I started in 2007 to now here. It's amazing.
I mean, that's so true, because you could build this greatest widget, but no one uses it, and it doesn't serve a purpose, or it solves a problem, then it's the greatest widget ever, but no one's using it.
Yeah, absolutely. And then, it's either collecting dust, or the person, or when we do want to use it, everyone's forgotten how to use it because they stopped using it, right?
Yeah.
So it's just ensuring that everyone's on the same page pre-purchase.
Yeah. So for your group, for your clinical applications group, can you share with us a little bit about your short-term goals and what your long-term wishes and goals would be?
Sure. This question always throws me for a loop, because I really do believe in taking in the moment in terms of current state and understanding where you are and what needs to be fixed now, what's a nice to have, what's a need to have, right? I will say that I feel incredibly fortunate to be involved with so many teams that are not necessarily directly impacted with a lot of what's going on, in that there's so much work to be done from an IT standpoint, right? So you have Epic, and so 100% it's about giving those opportunities. It's about cultivating that, and that is a huge project. But it's also about what are we doing to maintain the legacy, maintain current state. How are we going to do it in a way where we have to be smart from a decision-making standpoint, and as we're sort of giving opportunities to some folks, like seeing the wealth that is existing in all of the worlds, and just making sense of project by project and what we can do at this moment and what we'll have to wait, and then looking into the future. There is a lot of great project work going on, whether it's going to be Epic, or it's going to be OnBase, or it's going to be the move for a lot of our systems to data archiving. There's so much with Cerner Labs, with automation that a lot of my teams are involved in, that it's just really exciting to be part of that. And then giving timelines for deliverables so that we can level set expectations around what the asks are.
Okay.
And so right now it's just juggling all the balls, but making sure that we're communicating in terms of what the person asking can expect, and then going from there. There of course are 2-year, 4-year goal lines with bigger projects that we're all clearly aware of, that we will all commit to, but it's also not forgetting about the other stuff that has to be done as well.
Right. No, it's the day-to-day.
Yeah.
It's not all epic. I mean, you still have other stuff that you need to.
There's plenty of work to be done in so many ways, and that's what's so awesome about IT, right? And that's what's so awesome about nursing and about going into healthcare and about administration and operations. The world is your oyster. I mean, there's so many opportunities out there, and it's really up to you to really cultivate that and see what it is you want to do.
Right.
Because the work's not stopping, and it's just then shifting where you're going to put your time and energy to.
Awesome. Well, then that'll conclude our serious questions.
Okay.
All right, serious questions. So I don't know if you've seen other Bits and Bytes, but we do this challenge that I'm going to challenge you with. So as you can see on the left, we started with Rick Evans, our last guest, and so I'm going to give you 20 questions, rapid fire, and answer as quick as you can, best answer you can, and let's see if you can beat that 1 minute and 6 seconds that Rick.
So it's like a 1-word answer, 2-word answer. Where are we going with this?
Usually.
Okay.
1 word, I guess you could say.
Okay.
Okay. I just need a little help, Joe. All right. So just put the timer. Let me know we're ready, and then we'll stop at when I the 20th question. I'll tell you.
I'll start as soon as you start.
Where do these questions come from?
Poll the audience, and this is your family and friends know.
Okay,
This is just random questions, literally random questions.
Can I plead the fifth?
Yeah.
Alright.
You could lie too.
No. My face would turn red, I'd stumble, I wouldn't.
Okay, here we go. Ready?
Yep.
All right, Rick, here we go. 106, we're going to beat that. First question. Here we go. Scale of 1 to 10, how tech savvy are you?
7.
Instagram or Facebook?
Instagram.
Snapchat or Twitter?
Twitter.
Complete this sentence for me. When I grow up, I want to be a
Rockstar.
yellow taxi or Uber?
Uber.
Classical music or heavy metal?
Heavy metal.
iPhone or Android?
iPhone.
In 1 word, how would your friends describe you?
Loyal.
All right. In 1 word, how would your family describe you?
Tough.
If I could be a superhero for a day, I would be
Wonder Woman.
Yes. Day at the museum or day at the beach?
Day at the museum.
Least favorite movie?
Oh, Bad Santa. I just randomly came across it, and I was like almost angry that it was on the television.
Oh, we got time to beat. Favorite book?
Catcher in the Rye.
Favorite vacation destination?
Costa Rica.
Rain or shine?
Rain.
Star Wars or Star Trek?
Star Wars.
Houston or Houston?
Houston.
Burrito or taco?
Taco.
Seinfeld or Friends?
Seinfeld.
Barnes & Nobles or Amazon?
Amazon.
Willie Manzano or Daniel Barchi? Don't answer that. All right, round of applause.
So what was my time? Because I have to get back to Rick.
What do we got?
1:15.
Oh!
Well, that's because you went into a big education.
That's
You're
true.
right, thank you. You got my back, I like it.
So, should we
Thank you.
deduct some time off dust? Deduct flag, I don't know. We said 1:15?
Yep.
All right, we'll duck 5 seconds. That was about 5 seconds, I think. So let's say 1:10. All right. Good job. Thank you.
Thank you.
So I'm going to leave some time for questions, but I had a couple more questions as far as, so obviously you've done a lot of things in healthcare, a lot of different levels, and you've progressed. How would you say you hire? Like if you're hiring, if someone's interviewing with you, and what do you look for that hire?
I think when you interview your respective candidates, I think spending the time on the interview is crucial, especially when you understand what role you're trying to fill, right? But it's also understanding the strengths and weaknesses of your teams, right? Because it really does involve a lot of emotional intelligence to make the best decisions. So I'll never forget, at one point in my career, Willie Manzano had given me a book. It was called Great People Decisions. And I read it front and forward. I think on a plane ride actually to a magnet conference, which is sort of ironic. But I thought it was so impactful in terms of really understanding your candidate, knowing what their experiences are and what they can do to really build the team. I think it's crucial to always think about the team aspect when you're making hiring decisions. And it's also impactful and meaningful that that person meet with your team, because they're working with those team members a lot more one-on-one than they are with you or with me. And so having that feedback, that input is crucial, and I would not proceed forward unless my team was on the same page.
Got it. Is there one like specific or particular quality that you look for in a candidate?
Oh, 100%. I think grit is crucial. I think humility is maybe even more crucial.
Okay, so anyone looking for a position, take note. What is it? Well, actually, you kind of answered that one. What are you most proud of?
My son, he honestly is the best thing that's ever happened to me, from just an overall perspective.
Yeah.
He's gonna be 3, December 22nd.
So you passed the terrible 2s? Was it terrible?
It's terrible 3s. Whoever said terrible 2s was lying. 3 is a whole different ball game. I'm hoping that tempers out. But he's just a miracle and awesome, and I can't say enough about him. But I'm most proud of my teams. I'm most proud of the partnerships that I've been able to cultivate and develop throughout my career. I think it's all about people and taking the time to really understand what drives change, purpose, passion. That has been most meaningful for me in my career, and I'm proud of where I am. And it did take a lot of grit in many ways to be here, but I never looked back, and I never questioned when an opportunity came to me in terms of face-to-face. Like, I've heard this before in terms of your career and in terms of advice, when an opportunity presents itself, and as long as there's not a lot of extenuating circumstances that can challenge you from really embracing it, it's to embrace it. And it's to also understand that it's not always about what you see, it's about what others see in you, and it's taking advantage of that.
What do you think is the toughest part about parenting?
I would say it's just balancing, right?
Yeah.
So, not that I'm very fortunate I have the right support system for me in terms of how much time that I dedicate to work, but I think the toughest part is, making sure that you're constantly there when you're there.
Mm-hmm.
And so that has been an opportunity,
Right.
but it's also lent itself for some, growth in terms of understanding.
So I think did you say Twitter before? You said
Twitter. Well, it's sort of, yeah. I mean, it's par for the course,
Who do
right?
you follow on Twitter?
I think I follow a lot of people.
Who's your most person you like once you see him post that, someone that
Oh gosh, I'm not giving away secrets. No, I mean, I try to take advantage of using social media to understand what's happening across NYP, also to keep in touch, with a lot of my previous roles, with a lot of folks, to see just how well they're doing. It's really awesome to see just the enthusiasm around it, the marketing, the showcasing in many ways in terms of what's going on. I think I might follow 300 people, I think.
Oh, yeah.
Which I don't know if that's a healthy number. But if you see me on Twitter, follow me, ask me.
So, last question for me, and then I'll hand it over to you guys. What is what's on your bucket list? Do you have any bucket list items?
Yes, I do have a bucket list item. I always wanted to learn how to make pasta. I know that probably sounds simple, but I'm big into barbecuing and grilling. but I love food. I love food too.
So you're a foodie?
Floor.
You consider a foodie?
I think so.
What's your favorite restaurant?
Oh, gosh. So near me, there's a restaurant called Saddle River Inn. I'm not sure if anyone's from Bergen County, but if you ever go, it's called Saddle River Inn. It's in Saddle River, New Jersey. It is absolutely delicious, and it never fails. Never fails. I just recently went to a restaurant. It'll come back to me, but it was in the city. The Llama, it was on like West 12th. It was a pasta place where they made homemade pasta. Dell'Anima. It was delicious.
Okay, Delanima.
Dell'Anima.
Okay, and Saddle.
It's on Jane and West 12th, Little West 12th.
Okay,
Yes.
Jane and West 12. Great, awesome. Have you been to Italy?
I've been to Italy.
I just came back also.
How was it?
It was it's great. This is our second time, and this time we went to Rome and Amalfi Coast. Amazing.
Yeah, it's beautiful.
Amazing, yeah. So, all right. Well, this time I want to hand it over to you guys. For some audience kind of participation. Anyone have any questions for Mary?
Hi, Mary.
Hi.
Nice to see you.
Yes.
So, just in terms of leadership, the people that have led you, what qualities did you admire about their leadership skills, and what qualities did you adopt for yourself?
Sure. That's a great question. And to be very candid, one of the challenges I had in my career was around public speaking. That was a focus of mine for some time, a couple of years, in terms of really just wanting to have the confidence to do it as much as possible, especially when asked. And so, believe it or not, one of the focal points in terms of my career was Daniel Barchi and his ability to public speak.
Yeah.
And I was so quick to tell him that I think it was a year ago when I saw him at the Allen Hospital. I was so impressed by how engaging he was. And I've since taken a speakeasy, and it's done a world of good in terms of just being so self-aware. But I've always been really fixated on that aspect because that was something that I knew I needed to improve upon.
Yeah, I totally agree with you. And I actually asked him what he does, and I don't know if he told me the same thing, and he said, nothing really. I was like, great. I was telling me this. I do this and I do that. I'm like, write it down. He's like, I don't really, more to think about it. I don't know what he told you. But.
Yeah, so I'm always enthralled by. It doesn't always have to be a leader, but someone who takes stance and owns the audience. And yeah,
I'll send you a link.
Jennings does that too.
Jennings, yes. I'll send you a link that there's this. It was a salutatorian or valedictorian of Harvard Business School, 2015. Amazing. He wasn't reading off anything, but he had humor in it.
Yep.
He had, he was engaging the audience. I will send you a link. It's
Please
really
do.
good. Yeah. So I agree with you. Just
Yes.
anyone, just great speaker.
Great public speaking.
Questions? Anyone else? Thank you. Joe.
So I know your tenure in IT started off with a bang, but tell us about downtimes and the clinical impact that has. Exercising downtime procedures and what that feels like to someone who is trying to round on 12 patients or however many patients get assigned to a clinical nurse these days, and having to deal with that in addition to everything, all the call button bells and everything else that's happening.
Yeah, so it's quite ironic, right, when you think about where we were and where we are, right? So I'll never forget being at the nurse's station, literally handwriting my end of shift, start of shift, middle of shift notes, and thinking when I was about to embark in the EMR, oh my, this can't happen. Like, this is going to really affect workflow, right? And so, having been immersed in the workflow aspect for some time, downtime is incredibly impactful because, like all things, once we got the technology right, we started to build it in a way where it just was a part of everything we do, whether it's an order, or it's a result, or it's a vital sign, or it's a note, or it's looking at a lab test, whatever the case may be. And so, now being on this side, and Joe, you can attest to it, and trying to avoid downtime at all costs, and me being on the line being like, no, if it's at least on, we can roll our dice a little bit, because it really does have such a, I don't like to say negative, but it really does take its toll in terms of workflow. And whether you're the care coordinator, the RN, physician, dietitian, doesn't matter. It affects so many workflows. And so what I can say in my experiences, that was the gateway into just how incredibly humble I've been from this experience. The teams on the calls, whether it was Lab Cerner, Impact, Tier 2, whatever system went down, I have never been so impressed with the amount of dedication and commitment from all of you in this room and your teams. It is something that so many can learn from. It has been so meaningful for me, truly, because to be on that line and to have the amount of confidence I had so quickly was game-changing for me. And I knew from that moment, although it was sort of stepping into a fire, which is great because that's sort of how I've done my career throughout my life, it really just set the tone for the incredible pride I have for being part of this team.
Hi, Mixiar.
Yes?
You mentioned being surrounded by the right people and a lot of people being willing to sponsor you throughout your career. If not already, what kind of steps would you be willing to take to kind of pay it forward to the next movie?
Always. I cannot tell you how much I appreciate learning from, being around. My door is always open. I think most people will attest to that, whether it's email, call, walking into the door, it doesn't matter. I think paying it forward is incredibly important. I know that I just read Lean In. I'm sure all of you are familiar with that book and the author. And you know, one thing I did take from that book, which I thought was had a nice tone to it, was around the idea of mentors and mentorships, right? And as much as it's about the mentor providing that insight and that guidance, it's also about the person taking the next step, or the first step to actually ask for it, right? Because it does have to be bi-directional, and oftentimes, you know, people are so trepidatious to just take the first plunge or to just ask, and what I will say is ask, right? Like, step in, say, hey, would you consider, you know, spending some time with me, you know, and it could be flexible. It doesn't always have to be face-to-face. It could be a phone call, it could be an email, it could be WebEx, whatever the case may be. We have to create contingency plans, succession plans. I mean, it's really about, I think some of the greatest benefit we have as leaders are it's probably the best benefit is the teams that you actually lead and their successes. No problem.
Hi, my name is Daisy, and
Hi,
I just
Daisy.
have one question.
Sure.
As you mentioned that IT often develop systems that no one uses or hardly know about it. So as a leader, in your view, what would you recommend and encourage more user participation and utilization of the great systems that we purchase or we build?
Yeah, so I will say, I am, and I don't want there to be that thought that, you know, systems are purchased or thought about without the end user. I know that they're thought about. There's just been some challenges with certain technology that exists that probably doesn't even exist anymore. But what I will say is anytime we're implementing, whether it's a PCA pump or it's an EMR or you know, any other modality, mobile heartbeat, it's really important that we 100% understand the workflows and the impacts to who is absolutely going to effect, right? And it's not just about IT to do that. It's really all of our responsibility to ensure that we're just bringing in everybody so that communication can get out there, and we can have the end users at the forefront actually using it, have some weigh in terms of what's going to make sense for their workflow. And it could be a minor tweak, or it could be, you know what, this piece of technology isn't going to work for us because of A, B, C, and D. And so what better than to bring in the people that are using it to some of that work group type of session is really where I was headed with that.
So do you recommend the work group to be in place before the implementation or
Yes.
during the implementation?
Yes.
Okay, great. And would you do it on InfoNet or on Twitter?
I wouldn't do it on Twitter, I'll tell you that much. We could do it, I mean, the good thing about technology is, you know, we have the ability to do a WebEx, we have the ability to do conference call, bridge line, face-to-face, whatever the case may be, the technology exists. And so it's just my responsibility as the Vice President of Clinical Apps to make sure that I'm constantly thinking of how it's going to impact, so we can, so I can guide my teams before, you know, implementing a new rollout.
Thank you.
No, thank you, Daisy.
Yeah, my name is Willis. My question is, what are some of the changes that happened in 2018? There's been a lot of talk about a lot of changes, and will these changes bring about opportunities for those who would like to join us?
Sure. Thank you, Willis. So there are, I think, a few big opportunities that are happening in 2018. And so we have the opening of DHK that's happening in April, which is pretty significant in terms of the lift, and a lot of the infrastructure with the guidance and really awesome leadership of Chief and teams has been incredibly, I mean, the work they've done in such a short amount of time has been remarkable. And so that's one opportunity in terms of new building, new teams, new infrastructure, new workflows, even some of the procedural work that they're doing over there. That's going to be a heavy lift in 2018. We're starting to put together some of the work groups. I know that a lot of the interviewing has started and is still going on around Epic, specifically to the director roles right now. I know that there will be several managerial analysts, super user trainer roles also opening up in the next couple of months that we will hopefully get all of that information out to everyone so that everyone is aware. I know there were some challenges with actually seeing the director roles on the InfoNet or the career website because of the back and forth in terms of understanding when those positions were open and not. And I do apologize for that, but those should be on and available. And hopefully we'll do a better job at getting the information in a timely fashion, and that when you go into the career website, you actually see it for the other positions that will be opening. We're moving to 466 Lexington. That's happening first quarter of 2018. Probably end of first quarter into second quarter. Don't hold me to it in case it changes. So, you know, those are some of just the bigger lifts that are happening right now. But then again, you know, there's so many opportunities happening across NYP. And what I want to say is, while here I am, someone clinical going into IT, it's to really open up your horizons in terms of understanding what's also outside of IT, because we would do ourselves a real disservice if we didn't have all of this talent in other roles as well. And so while you may have been in IT for several years, it doesn't mean that you can't look at the director of radiology position that's opening up, or an ops role, or whatever the case may be, because it's about bringing that diversity to all the worlds, right? And so I will definitely welcome you to look at those opportunities. And if I can help with anything, please, by all means, reach out to me.
Can I get some help in that perspective?
Sure.
I've been pursuing an IT position for the past 20 years. I recently spoke to Mr. Marchi and we couldn't go through to have an interview with him, or just to meet with him. But it comes to a point that I'm so discouraged right now, but I'm just trying to throw this out to you, see if there's any way you can help.
Sure, absolutely. I'm easily found on the InfoNet and in terms of the directory, but let's touch base and let me get your email and we'll set up some time, okay?
Thank you.
No problem.
Awesome. Well, I want to thank everyone for coming, and of course, special thanks for our special and very engaging guest, Mary. And as a token of our appreciation, I have a Bits-N-Bytes mug for you.
Thank you. This made it all worth it. I love mugs. I love coffee. I love mugs. No,
Awesome.
just kidding. Arwen, this has been an amazing experience. And really, thank you to all of you for taking the time to be here with me today. It really means a lot, and I hope you've gained something from it. I know I have. And now we're all friends in the room. So please don't hesitate. Reach out to me if you have any questions.
All right, big round of applause for Mary.